Hello everyone, it's me Carly here. Thank you to Rebecca for inviting me to talk for you today. Talking for about an hour at home. It seems really strange. Normally, Autism Awareness Week, the biggest week in the calendar for an autism advocate, and autism charities and companies. And normally, we would have been in person, chatting and as a speaker, that gives me some challenges because there's a certain mask you can wear when you're at a big conference and there's an atmosphere that's buzzing, and then you get up on stage and with someone from a drama background, that's very helpful because that adrenaline you get before you go up on stage actually makes you a much better speaker, I think. Sometimes nerves are good. So actually, I'm really worried that I'm going to bore you for an hour. So please don't consider this a keynote speech as such, but please consider it that I'm welcoming you into my front room. You can tell it's my front room because the lipstick has to match the Union Jack throw. I like things to be matching. So yeah, let's just have this as a bit of a chat, really. Obviously, I'm facing a computer screen. I can't see all your lovely faces, but please do consider this maybe a bit of a lunchtime together to chat all things autism. So yeah, if for those I haven't met before, my name's Carly. I'm 38, nearly 39, and I'm an autistic woman. I was diagnosed at 32 years of age after two of my three daughters were diagnosed as being autistic. So I've got three daughters, one who's 23, one who's 18, coming up 19, and my youngest daughter who's just turned 13 this week, actually. So two of my daughters are also autistic, and it was kind of after their diagnosis that I was able to get my diagnosis, although we kind of knew before, which I'll come into. So one of my daughters was diagnosed at 6 years of age, and my other daughter who's diagnosed was diagnosed at 2 years of age, so incredibly young, particularly being girls. Are very, very fortunate to have those early diagnoses. But for autistic women, we know that past generations and past decades, that just didn't happen. It's either that autism was seen as more of a male condition, and then the clinicians that were aware that autistic girls are also autistic may not have had the right tools or clinical experience or awareness of how to spot us, how to diagnose us, which left us actually with a real fight on our hands to navigate the world. I think our biggest vulnerability as autistic women is actually that we're hidden in plain sight a lot of the time. So often when I tell people I'm autistic, they kind of say, you don't look it. I don't know what that means. How am I supposed to look autistic? I don't really know. And if you also get that, male or female or anywhere in between, if you also get told that you don't look it, just say we haven't hung around long enough. Because if you hang around long enough, you will see the autistic behaviours, you will see the autistic traits and the wonderful things being autistic can bring, and the huge challenges that can bring too. So yeah, Rebecca sent me an email of some things to cover. So the first one is about discovering I was autistic. So it's almost, often when I talk about it backwards. Say, well, this was my diagnosis and then this was why. But today I'm going to talk about it from the start and go onwards. So yeah, it wasn't until I was 32 that I was officially diagnosed, and that was by Dr. Judith Gould at the Lorna Wings Centre. Now, Dr. Judith Gould, an absolute hero of mine, not just personally, but professionally as well. If it wasn't for Dr. Judith Gould and the late Dr. Lorna Wing, we, as a world, we wouldn't know that autistic people with speech were autistic. So in 1981, Dr. Lorna Wing and Dr. Judith Gould coined the term Aspergers, which is my official diagnosis, Asperger's syndrome. And if I say Aspergers, I know for a fact that Dr. Gould and Dr. Wing wouldn't be very happy with me about that, because it's Aspergers. It's a hard G. You have to think Aspergers, donkey burgers. But that kind of diagnostic term, first of all, isn't in the diagnostic manual anymore. That was taken out. Everyone's just diagnosed autistic. So that's times have moved on. But also there's some controversy about Asperger's now, not the term, but the person. So yeah, Dr. Lorna Wing and Dr. Judith Gould came across, actually I think it was Lorna's husband, came across some Austrian papers by a doctor called Hans Aspergers, and from that it was talking very much about autistic children that he had observed, and of course he'd observed them in World War II in Austria, so it's very controversial, and how they could use humour and how they could use speech. So at the time in 1981 as well, leading up to 1981, Dr. Lorna Wing and Dr. Judith Gould had noticed that when many non-verbal autistic children they were supporting and diagnosing at the Lorna Wing Centre, they often had siblings that would come into the waiting room using humour, using speech, but also having real challenges in social communication and being very autistic. So it was the marriage of the information found by Dr. Lorna Wing's partner and Dr. Lorna Wing and Dr. Judith Gould that led them to coin the term Asperger's. So incredible women, and to be able to be diagnosed by Dr. Judith Gould is incredible, and I'm so glad it was her. I'm so glad it was her, not only because of the kind, compassionate and very matter-of-fact way that she diagnosed me, but I'm so glad it's her because you get questioned and you don't get believed a lot sometimes when you're autistic, and if people say, well, you don't look it, people don't tend to not believe you. And actually, if another clinician was to say, oh, no, I don't believe you're autistic, I say, well, actually, the lady that coined the term diagnosed me, so I know I am. And it was really important to know I am, because life up till then was a complete confusion, just winging it. And we all wing it. I think the older we get, we realise, particularly in work circles, everyone's just winging it. Everyone's just trying to do their best. But you know, by the time you're 27, you shouldn't kind of be winging it, buying a pint of milk. You shouldn't have to be winging it, having to make a conversation with someone. You shouldn't have to be winging it when you go out of an evening, in relationships and friendships, and you're just improvising constantly. In fact, one of my first big talks that I did was for the National Autistic Society, and I started it off saying that, you know, imagine you've been to see a theatre show, and you're sat at the back of the theatre and you're there as an observer. You're just there to observe and have a nice time out, and all of a sudden you get a tap on the shoulder and you're led onto the stage, and all the actors around you have rehearsed this scene for months, and you have no idea what's going to happen next. You don't know what you need to say, so you don't say anything, and then people are annoyed at you for not saying anything, so you just say something, you say anything, and you're constantly trying to get their reaction to see if you said the right thing, and actually a lot of the time you don't say the right thing, and they're really cross with you because you're holding up the event, you're holding up the show, and that's kind of how I felt and still do feel a lot of the time. Just buying a pint of milk, just going out to work when the girls were younger, just going to the school gates, you know, am I saying the right thing? Is this what I'm supposed to do? It's like everyone else had got the script. And I think that's why my special interest and love of acting and creative arts was from a very young age. And that's because it's the only time in my life that I had the script. I knew what was going to happen next. I knew what somebody else was going to say in return. I even knew what I had to wear, and you know, when it stopped and when it started. And that was really, really reassuring. And if you messed up and if you get your lines wrong, or if it's not said in the way that it's supposed to have been said, someone yells cut and you get to try again and again and again. And life performing is so much easier than real life. And I've always felt much more comfortable on stage than I do buying a pint of milk. And that's been quite a challenge actually in this kind of virtual conference world that we're working in now, because the confidence is gone and I can't mask, and because I'm at home and it's my haven. So I'm welcoming you all in, and hope that I still do a good enough job, because this is far more scary than standing up on a stage in front of thousands of people. That to me feels like home. Sometimes working from home, although it's helpful with travel and childcare and dog care, it's tricky. So yeah, when I got the diagnosis, when you go through your diagnosis, as you know, often you get asked about your life growing up. And now I have a very, very long-term memory. My short-term memory is rubbish. So if I was to walk upstairs to get something, I might go upstairs and think, oh, I can't remember why I went upstairs. Luckily now, I've just downsized to a new property where everything is on one level. It's like a coach house type thing, you know. So that's actually very lucky. So I don't have the stairs to walk up to. Don't need to. So I don't have that problem. But that's the example. But my long-term memory is very good, to the point where I described a gentleman that I remembered at my nanny's house, so my nan, and I said to my nan and my mum, I said, oh yeah, I remember meeting my great granddad. Because he was a short man and he was slender, and he had a brown suit with pinstripes on, and he drank Guinness. And my mum and nan were pretty outstanding by this recollection of mine, because I only met him once, and when I did, I wasn't even 2 years old. So my photographic long-term memory is pretty good, but short-term memory is pretty rubbish. As you might see, I'm probably going to forget. I've had to write it down on a bit of napkin. My bullet points of what to write, because I will forget short-term memory, but long-term memory. So I could kind of fill in a lot in the diagnostic room about a lot of things. And one of my earlier memories as well was before school age. So I must have been kind of 3, 4, that kind of age. And my mum trying to get me to go to preschool, to nursery. And I can remember having this yellow anorak raincoat thing, and it had big crayons. So it was the 80s. It had big crayons all over it, and I can remember this, and I can remember getting there, and everyone else, all the other kids, just kind of knew what to do, and I didn't really know what to do. And in the corner we had this like a red phone box. To me it was massive, but remember I was 3 and I'm only 5'2" now, so it's probably just this big. But it was like this huge wooden phone box, and I would kind of go in the phone box and pretend to make phone calls, because I could shut the door and just be on my own in there. And I really struggled, to the point, and I remember mobile phones hadn't been invented then, or if they had, you know, people couldn't afford them, because it was like 1984 or something. And I can remember my mum having to pick me up constantly. She tells me now that when she would walk home from the nursery, before she'd even gone to the front door to put the key in the door, the landline in our house was ringing, saying, no, come and pick your daughter up. So in the end, my mum got a job at the preschool. She used to, my mum's a civil servant now, but she used to do, you know, lots of accountancy work, and she's incredibly bright. And poor mum had to give up everything, so she got a job at the nursery as a nursery assistant, making teas and coffees and things, just so I would go. And then primary school starts. It's the same situation. The photo of my first day at school is actually pretty classic. I wish I had it on me here. I haven't. It's at my mum's house, but I'm in a a grey wool coat. I had a grey briefcase. Now, for those who meet, they'll always know that I've got a brief. I love a briefcase. I had a grey briefcase, and my face is just like, I was the most unhappiest child about the first day at school. But anyway, so the same thing happened at primary school. Mum had to get a job at primary school. Gets to secondary school, and my mum's kind of, you're on your own. I'm not getting a job at secondary school. We've got you to this like 11, 12. I'm going out and doing, what she wants to do in her work since she didn't want to work at the secondary school. God love her. And life just fell apart. I could not cope at all. I can remember starting off being the kid with my hands in the air, answering all the questions, and then I learnt pretty quick that that wasn't cool, and that's not going to get you liked at all. So I started to try and fit in, a lot of masking, and actually I think my masking was so extreme that it led me to not fitting in. I can remember dyeing my hair bright white blonde, and I thought that was a really good idea. And constantly wearing fake tan, almost like an armour. And actually, I did that until my late 20s. My fake tan was kind of my armour, which is ridiculous because I'm really olive anyway, thanks to my dad's genetics. I'm very, very olive. So it wasn't even just because I thought it looked more attractive. I don't think, because let's remember, the early 1990s, fake tan is how it is now. I was a pumpkin. I was orange, with bright white hair, and loads of makeup, tons of makeup, piercings. Then I shaved my hair, and it was just constantly trying to not be myself. I felt safer not being myself, and I really, really struggled at school. Friendships wise, I kind of got on with everyone, but for 2 minutes, and it kind of felt like being a ping pong ball, like. Everyone seemed to, and I think this happens a lot for autistic girls actually, when they get to kind of that 9 to 13 age, where friendships are quite fluid, they suddenly become like, oh, who is your best friend, or this is that clique, that is that clique. And I can remember not really ever fitting into any of those cliques well enough, that kind of outsider feeling, and kind of ping-ponging, which was pretty exhausting, kind of ping-ponging, thinking I can fit in for 2 minutes, I can fit in for 2 minutes. And then it gets to the point where you don't fit in at all. And I became quite rebellious, actually, from being quite passive. I've always been an extrovert, but I think that probably led to me being viewed as a bit of a troublemaker, but I wasn't. I was always very kind to people. I wasn't picking fights or anything. Apart from the one boy that I super glued into his chair because he called me Four Eyes. But that wasn't at secondary school, that was at primary school. That was a bit mean. I'm sorry to him. Particularly he had to take his trousers off in front of everyone, but don't call a girl Four Eyes. So apart from him, I've always been very kind to people. But it was just that kind of not fitting in, and I got on so much better with boys than I did with girls. Although I really looked up to many of the girls in my year and the older years, and kind of idolised them, kind of copied a lot of them as well, thinking, oh, that looks really cool, I'm going to try that, or this looks really good, I'm going to, and people don't like that either, because we're like, oh, you've only got the same bag because I got the same bag, and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't really understand the whole friendships with girls, and I've never seen myself as a candidate for having a friendship with girls, until I was diagnosed autistic and I met other autistic women, and now I have really lovely friendships with other females. So that was quite interesting and tough. So the problem is, if you get on much better with boys, what do the other girls in your year think of you? Why should you always hang around with boys? First of all, if the boy you decide to be really good friends with is their crush or someone they like, they immediately don't like you because they think that you're trying to flirt with them, which you're not. You just get on better with boys, because boys tend to just say it as it is. If they've got a problem with you, they tell you to your face. They're very abrupt, they're very honest, sometimes brutally honest, but they're honest. Whereas girls, I've noticed in secondary school years particularly, they don't do that. They'll pretend to be your best friend, but then kind of slag you off behind your back. And I never understood that. I found that very difficult. I would just rather someone said to my face they had a problem with me, and I could try and address that or explain that, or just walk away, So that was really challenging. I didn't do very well at school, socially or educationally. I left school at 15, pregnant, and then lived in a mother and baby homeless hostel until I was about 18. And that was, again, really challenging. I was quite fortunate, actually, because one or two of the girls that were in the mother and baby hostel were actually girls that I had known from school, and they were nice. So that was good, and still think very much of them today, although we don't really see each other anymore. That was the only blessing out of it. But those places aren't good. They're not good. They're not good places. And it was very, very hard to kind of work 3 jobs. I used to I used to work in a legal office in the day doing an MVQ. So I've left school with no GCSEs, so then you've got to try and get a job because you've got a baby to look after. And even if you're in a homeless hostel, you still have to pay rent. Then it's not free. You know, you have to pay to live in a hostel, believe it or not. So I obviously had to work, and there was nappies and food and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, my daughter had to go to a childminder, which was quite tough. The childminder was very, very nice. We were lucky, but it was quite tough because I loved. If I was a very young mum, I was just a kid myself. I loved it, and I can remember picking her up one day, and the childminder was a bit quiet when I was asking questions. I don't know what that's about. Anyway, and then on the Monday, I can remember taking her back and saying, "Oh my goodness, you know, she said her first word this weekend. I can't believe it." And the childminder's face just dropped. And I said, "Oh, she's already spoken, hasn't she?" So all of the things which I thought she'd done for the first time, she'd done with the childminder, and that was really tough. And something I've really cherished with my younger children. That you know, that I was still working, but fortunate to see their first steps and see their first word and that kind of thing, because I didn't really get that with my oldest, and it was tough on her as well, I imagine. Must be quite confusing for a toddler, mustn't it? You know, your mum going off to work in the morning and only seeing you for bedtime. So yeah, I used to did this MVQ to get not only my A-level kind of I got A-level equivalents then, so then the GCSEs didn't really matter. I didn't need to declare them because I got these A-level equivalents, and yeah, I did that in a legal office, and it was supposed to take 2 years. Now remember, my main job in this legal office was to dress up nice for meetings, and then when for the legal team and doing contracts and all this kind of stuff, dress up nice for meetings, take the minutes, write the notes of the meetings, make tea and coffee. I can make a great cup of tea, and can't cook, but if you want a cup of tea, I'm your girl. And do the shredding. And I'm really grateful that I got to do the shredding. First of all, if the office was a bit noisy, I could go off into the corner, into the little cupboard where the shredder was, and just sit there shredding things. But also, it was quite boring. So I used to read all the contracts before they got shredded. And when you're a black and white thinker, now of course still then I didn't know I was autistic, but when you are a black and white thinker, which a lot of us autistic people naturally are, you can see why, you can find the grey area, because it's the only part of what's written that doesn't make explicit sense to you. So many legal contracts and policies and drafts get shredded or are ruined because there's a grey area. It's ambiguous. And I would kind of go through these going, oh yeah, you know, kind of almost circling them before I shred them, like giving my finger, yeah, that's why. And I'm really glad I got to do that, because now a lot of the time my advocacy, I'm having to look through guidelines and looking through policies and looking through laws and kind of looking at them and thinking, well, that's the problem. There's the ambiguity. This is what we need to get sorted, and this leaves someone behind. So actually, I left there not only with my MVQ, which should have taken 2 years, and I did it in 5 months, and then I got told off for doing it too quick. You know, I had a childminder to pay. I had to do this quick. So yeah, kind of ceremoniously fired from that. But I got my MVQ anyway, which was good. So I would do that in the day, and then I would work in nightclubs at night, and I was a dancer, and terrifying actually to think that a 16-year-old was allowed to go and work in a nightclub wearing a bikini. You know, talking 1999 time. But the world's moved on. So I used to work as a nightclub dancer. And the thing is, I'm actually a really bad dancer. So I think the only reason I got that job was because I was wearing a sparkly pink bikini, and I was just very keen, and I liked dancing. So I worked as a dancer in the evenings a couple of nights a week, and then sold Avon door to door, and I was quite bad at that as well. And I can remember this elderly couple who lived in a bungalow, and and I used to take my daughter with me in her buggy, and every time I knocked on their door, they would always order something. And not only would they order something, when I then went to deliver it, they would say, "Oh, you must come in and have a cup of tea and have some biscuits," and they would always make sure my daughter and I had biscuits and stuff. And I thought, they really like Avon, but actually, I think they could just see that I was pretty tired and pretty thin. And they were just such a lovely old couple. I'm pretty sure that actually where I've just moved to is around the corner from where I used to live in the mother and baby hostel. It's less than 5 minutes walk away in that direction, so that's quite strange and nice in a way. But yeah, I'm pretty sure if a few doing some running and losing a bit of weight in lockdown, I've kind of gone past the bungalow a few times, and they're not there anymore because it's 20 odd years ago. They were quite elderly then, but yeah, fond memories of the nice elderly couple who used to feed me when I was very, 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 very poor and young. So yeah, life was a challenge, shall we say? And of course, looking back on all of these things, you might think, oh, if you're autistic, how did you go and work in a nightclub? Very easily. The same thing applies. Other girls my age were going to the nightclub to spend money and to be sociable and have fun. But first of all, I was there to work, and second of all, I wasn't drinking or anything. You can't drink on a podium; you fall off. I couldn't afford it anyway, so you're drinking water, and then you're this is going to sound really ropey, but I'm amongst friends, so I can tell you, you are about 20-30 foot in the air in a cage. This is sounding really unethical, and it was. The nightclub's closed down now, so we can talk about it. But yeah, so actually you're not really going to talk to anyone else because you're up there. You're just dancing. And actually it was a really good stimming process. I find dancing a good stim, although you can't really control stims. I'm doing it now with a squidgely pen. But yeah, I used to find it a good release as well after, very, very busy and sometimes stressful and emotionally charged week. So that's what life was like before diagnosis. Incredibly tricky, and my wardrobe, when you looked at it, now if you open my wardrobe, which I won't show you because it's embarrassing, but now it's kind of some work clothes, maybe a few tops, do like a good 80s puffy sleeve, and then everything else is just beige. I love beige. Jeans and beige, that's all you need. You can go anywhere, jeans and beige. And it's quite boring, but actually for me it's very comforting. It's kind of a neutral canvas, because prior to diagnosis, if you'd opened my wardrobe and had a look in, it was kind of like going behind stage of a costume department at a film set, or a costume department at the local theatre, because there was an outfit for every person I had to be. But it was never an outfit for me. Never something which I said, oh, I like that. That's, I can remember people saying that thing, oh, that's so you. But I didn't actually know who you was, because I was too busy trying to be all of these roles for other people. So that's the outfit you wear at the school run, or you at the mum and baby toddler group, for example. That's that sort of thing that you should wear. That's what the other people wear. And, that's an outfit for if you're going out for the evening. And and it wasn't just a blend of kind of day stuff that you could kind of dress up for the night. It was completely different. So it could be, in the day, very high neck top and something flowery, and then evening would be like a leather plunge dress, glitter everywhere. I even had different hair to wear so this is all my hair now, I promise you can tell because I'm going great at top. But different hair to wear, and I mean a lot of people do that anyway, they might put an extra bit here and there in, but it was just completely different. Like wigs, 3 pairs of eyelashes, just really over the top, almost a caricature of what I thought it was to be female. And I still love glitter now, and shiny things. You know, if you're going to be weird, be confident about it, ladies. But it was, yeah, nothing. Everything there was just trying to be what I thought the other person needed me to be in that situation, rather than who I needed to be, and living authentically. And that masking, not only on an emotional level but then on a physical level as well, can really, really damage, and does damage, your self-esteem. So a diagnosis, I think, is the first day of the rest of your life, and it helps you kind of go, okay, under all of this, who am I? I don't think it's a diagnosis is discovering yourself. I think a diagnosis gives you the opportunity and the confidence to start discovering everything you're not. And that's even more important. You become like, imagine you go to a new house and it's got a new wall, and then year after year, or even day after day, your wallpaper in that wall, different wallpaper, thinking, oh, what's the next person going to like? Wallpapering it on. And before you know it, your wall's thick, and you're digging away, going, oh, I don't even like that wallpaper, you know, and you're digging away until you get back to your original self. And that's quite a strange metaphor, I appreciate, but that's kind of what it felt like, having to remove all of these layers of wallpaper that I didn't need. The wall was perfectly fine. I didn't need to do that. I was pleasing everybody else, eroding at my own self-esteem at the same time. And the way we kind of get our self-esteem, sorry, I'm doodling now because I have to do something whilst I talk. The way I kind of so I'm not on stage, so I can't run up and down the stage, I have to do something. The way I kind of got around that masking was to realise that the whole time I'm not developing my sense of self, I'm not developing my self-esteem, I'm not developing my self-confidence, and I would not describe myself as a confident person at all, even now, years after diagnosis. But I'm authentic, and actually being in lockdown and stuff has helped me do that even more. I was looking back at videos of other talks and panels and things that I'd done, and interviews that I'd done even, 18 months ago, and I'd noticed that even the way I spoke was different, because I'd always try and put on like my telephone voice or my best voice, because I thought, actually, that's what people want. They want me to be very polite, and you can be polite and still talk like this, but I wasn't talking in my authentic language as well, if you like. I was trying to talk a bit posher, maybe, and I can't mask at home. If I was to mask at home, everything would just fall apart, because that's the place where you can be yourself. And working from home, I haven't been able to mask as much, and actually that's been a very healthy thing for me. It's been really good, because I've been able to kind of just be the more authentic than before, which is good. And it's still a learning process. If you think, I was masking up to the age of 32, it's not going to suddenly sort itself out, is it? It's not going to sort itself out in kind of like 6-7 years. That's because it's taken 32 years of wallpaper, so it's still a learning curve, but yeah, really, really important, and it does affect your well-being. And what I've found, even now, talking even more recently in the last year, my daughter has an assistance dog, and I'm training her assistance dog with help from a training provider as well, and help from my friend who does dog walking and dog training. So it's not just me, but that's where he is today. Otherwise, he'd be barking and jumping everywhere, because he's the world's naughtiest assistance dog, which is an accolade I'm proud of. And but I found I've never really been a very outdoorsy person. Didn't like PE at school because it's change of temperatures, and I'm the sort of person that would prefer to see someone else win, which is lucky, because I can't swim and I run really slow. So it's quite lucky that I thought, oh no, you win. Can't beat you anyway because I'm a bit rubbish. But so I've never really been outdoorsy, but that's completely changed since training my daughter's assistance dog. So again, it's another thing which I've by helping my daughters, it's taught me more about myself as well. So when we go out and we do walks with him, and I mean proper wood walks to the point where you have no idea where you are because you're in the middle of a wood, you know, walking 2 hours one way and probably trying to walk 2 hours back. Not good when you've got hypermobility, by the way. Lots of breaks in between, lots of sitting down and leaving early so it's not dark and you're not sat in the woods going, where am I? And always use the loo first, don't want to get caught out there. That's been very good for my daughter and my mental well-being, because there's just something so beautiful about, you know, the only thing you're looking at that moment is what's happening in front of you, and you have to because you're safeguarding your dog, but you're not thinking about what happened yesterday or what's going to happen tomorrow, and you're just thinking about, wow, oh look, there's a log there, wow, look at that mushroom, wow, look at that bird, oh, is that a deer, you know. And I've just got this absolute love of the outdoors now, and my car's covered in mud, but I have to be very careful when I get into something and I find that I love it, because that could become a special interest. And I keep watching farming programs on TV now, and I'm pretty sure that my phone knows, because my phone keeps pinging up this thing with like a online dating service if you want to marry a farmer. Haven't signed up yet, but I'm tempted, because it would be nice, unless he killed the animals, of course, which farmers unfortunately have to do. So maybe just like a dog rescue guy, something like that. But I found walking, as simple as it is, you know, it's cheap. Although you have to get yourself a blinking good Coke 'cause it's freezing. It's cheap, and it's good for you physically, but most important mentally. And I just find walking and that kind of work-life balance, which kind of didn't get before, because it would be travelling a lot of the time, and then homesteading with my daughter as well, and then trying to combine the two. And as our world goes back, I think I'm going to have to try and make sure that I don't go back to being busy, here, there, because it's not good, and then you find yourself starting to mask again, and I don't want to get back to that point. Going back to acting, still do a bit of acting, and I was recently in a casting room, and I explained to them that they knew that I was autistic, and it was with the BBC, and they said, you know, just completely be yourself. And it was the nicest thing anyone had ever said to me, because actually the minute I'm assuming many actors go into a casting room and act, whereas I'm going into a casting room and giving myself to read the words of the character, but to unact, and to stop acting and kind of let all emotions out. It's quite cathartic. So maybe it's the other way, I don't know, but that really works for me as well. I love performance. So yeah, now being autistic, I can see the wonderful things that help me work with being autistic. So I do quite a lot of stuff for, be it like public appointments or public service-esque type roles, and sitting on boards. And I can remember getting sent through this list called the Nolan Principles, and it's the principles that you have to abide by. There's 7 of them. I can't remember them all off the top of my head, but there's 7 of them, and I can remember getting this list through and thinking, this is the moment I need to tell them that I can't do this, because I'm not going to be able to be the type of person they need me to be. And I thought, well, I'll read through them anyway, but I was really worried, thinking, okay, time's up, Carly, time's up. and the Nolan Principles, some of them are honesty, transparency, I think it's transparency, or maybe that's the same as honesty, leadership, accountability, all of these kind of things. And I thought, well, actually, for autistic people tend to just live by that code of ethics anyway. That is our principles. You know, if we're wrong, we will very objectively listen to the other side and go, actually, you know what, I think I could have been wrong. It's, you know, there's not that kind of social agenda behind a discussion for many of us. And honesty we have in bucket loads. Very, very unfiltered and very, very honest people. And it was just such a huge relief to be able to hear these things you had to have, and that's really helped me, because it's made me feel that there are places where I didn't think someone like me would fit, and actually I do fit, and that's been great. There's also challenges getting older, and being autistic. Obviously, the minute that you're 18, you're not suddenly not autistic anymore. If you're autistic, you're born autistic, you die autistic, you're autistic, and that's been quite difficult, getting into friendships and relationships as an adult. I tend to just not date, because I kind of made a rule with myself, actually. I mean, my girls are older now, but I made because I got divorced at 25, but I made a kind of rule that yes, I would kind of date, but I wouldn't live with anyone again, and I wouldn't do that, because my judgment on someone's agendas is shocking. Some people call it red flags. I mean, if people are waving red flags at me, then they must be pale pink or transparent, because I tend to not see them quick enough. So I kind of made with my objective logistical hat on, I kind of made a rule not to live with anyone in my home, because my duty is to raise my children in a really safe way. So I kind of promised myself, by the time they were all secondary school age or older, then I would start dating. And actually, I just keep putting it off. And then I got a dog for my daughter, so I think I'm just putting it off. True love will have to find me, but I find that really challenging, because people tend to lie a lot and or exaggerate a lot, and I still don't understand that. I just like people to be really straightforward and really honest. And I do like my own company, and with the animals and my children and stuff. So it's quite tricky. If I was to write like a dating profile, I would want like a DBS check, and then I want 2 references from like their past lovers. Maybe a nice overview statement from their mum or something. And yeah, I've just also kind of like, maybe didn't like it not to be all the time. And I know a relationship is meant to be all the time. So I'm very good at that. Would I, can I see you on Tuesdays and Fridays? That'd be nice. Something like that. I'm busy, got loads to do. So yeah, it's just, and more kind of socks to wash, things like that. But I'm sure one day someone will come along and make me forget all of my very rigid expectations of dating. But yeah, that's been quite challenging. So what else was there? Oh, that was the bullet point there. Talk about relationships and navigating them. Yeah, just don't have them. With friendships, I find that tricky sometimes. I've got a friend from uni, but we kind of see each other on all the important things, and that's kind of it. That's fine, because we always pick up from the same place. She's a really lovely woman, and I've met incredible friends through my work, be that email friends, or be that unfortunately one of my dearest friends lives up near Manchester, so I can't get to her at the minute. But it's the daily WhatsApp to each other, or I'm not very good at telephone calls. And I think friends have picked up on that. So it's always kind of emails or texts. Not particularly good at telephone calls. I find them really overwhelming, and I get very nervous about them. I mean, I do them. I have to as part of my job, but I'd rather not. I'd rather have an email or a WhatsApp, because you kind of have time to construct your answer, can't you? And I have time to think about it or not. Those sort of things. So yeah, relationships is still, I can't give any advice on that. None, apart from just, you know, get advice from well-intended other people. My mum is the person that I go to for advice. My mum's not autistic, and so yeah, when it comes to friendships and dating, and my mum's the one who I go to for that opinion. I don't always have to listen, and sometimes I don't, and then I regret it. But yeah, definitely speak to someone you trust about that. But yeah, so you know, it was tricky. You know, getting the diagnosis. It sounds like an easy thing, doesn't it? Oh, I think I might be autistic. Ring up, make an appointment, then you get diagnosed. You know, we all know it's not like that. I was seen at 14. Talking about my mum, bless her. So my mum was very worried about me when I was 14. Was refusing to go out of my room, refusing to go to school, and I would just spend a lot of the time either doing my acting, which I did over in Chiswick. The school's not there anymore. It's called Ravenscourt Theatre School. It was great fun, and I just kind of lived for that really, and then kind of started getting into trouble a bit when that all ended. That was my safe thing. And when it comes to our special interests, if you've got an autistic young person that you support, if they've got a special interest, as long as that's not hurting anyone else. So if it was a bad special interest, so I don't know, so their special interest was smoking weed, then you might go, actually, let's try and divert from that, because that's not good for your health. But you know, if they have a special interest which isn't harming them or harming anyone else, try everything you have in your power to keep that special interest going, because that is going to be the constant redirector. If they've, you know, had a breakup with a boyfriend or a girlfriend, their special interest is going to save them emotionally. If it's things aren't going right at school, or there's some bullying, or life's just got tough, the special interest will be their saviour. So if you can try and keep it going, do. Unfortunately for me, with the acting that I was doing, I was offered a full-time place, a scholarship full-time, but it was just too, even the boarding was just too expensive to go. And then, because being the type of person that's either going 200 miles an hour or not at all, it was just like, well, there's no point in me doing it then, because I can't do it at 200 miles an hour. So I could have kept going kind of on the weekly, but because I couldn't do it at 200 miles an hour, I was just like, you know, it's not for me. I'm very, very goal-driven, and black and white. And not so much now. I've learnt to get the balance, but not always, most of the time. And for me, that was just like someone saying, you can never do this again, which of course I can still do it. But that was really hard, and kind of get myself in trouble. So anyway, yeah, Mum took me at 14 to see a psychologist, so I spend loads of time in my room, lights off, that sort of thing. And then when I was out, I was getting up into no good, and the psychiatrist diagnosed me as lazy, which is ridiculous because I'm a workaholic. And that wasn't very good. And then, you know, that was even worse, because my parents done everything they could to try and get me some support, but there wasn't any understanding out there, and life really spiraled after that. You know, getting pregnant, leaving school, home hostels, dancing in a cage, and so then I got married really young, divorced at 25, and then at 27, after the girls had been diagnosed, I think that was by then. Yeah, it was. I went to see a NHS clinician, and you know, said, you know, look, I'm sure I'm autistic, because it would just kind of explained everything. And he said, oh, you know, what are your hobbies? And I said, oh, I like acting. And he said, oh, well, you couldn't be autistic then, because autistic people can't act. And he said, you know, you have to put yourself into somebody else's shoes for that. And I said, no, I don't put myself in someone else's shoes. I just invite them into my shoes. And then at that point, I think, I just thought I was a very strange person. And I was medicated, actually, for a social anxiety disorder. The medication didn't work. In fact, it made me more anxious. And of course, it didn't work, because what I have is not a medicated issue. I'm autistic. So it wasn't until I was doing some advocacy with my kind of mum hat on that it was actually Dr. Judith Gould was in the audience of that talk I did, and then we got together after that, and I applied for a diagnosis there. So absolutely changed my life, and it's almost feels a bit it almost feels a bit like a life of two halves, the before the diagnosis and after the diagnosis, and I shudder to think where I would be now had Dr. Judith Gould not have taken me under her wing and supported me and allowed me to go for a diagnosis. And I just shudder to think, because what other vulnerabilities would I put myself and my family through? What would I be doing as a job? I used to be a cleaner and I loved it, and I tell you what, almost every day when the emails get a bit much, or if I've accidentally upset someone, every day I'm like, I'm going to be a cleaner again, because I loved it, because I could work on my own, and all I had to worry about was if the tap was shiny. But I was very frustrated because I wanted to do more. But I blinking loved being a cleaner, and I would do it again in a heartbeat, trust me. But I do shudder to think, what type of job would I be doing? Would I be really frustrated, because I've always wanted to try and help people. I failed my degree. I kind of ran out of money and got divorced 2 years into it, so I couldn't finish my degree. But the degree I was studying at kind of 23ish was psychology, and I did that because I really wanted to help people. I wanted to help people that felt like outsiders. I wanted to help people that felt different. I wanted to kind of give someone their life back, and through advocacy, I hope somehow, in some small way, I've been able to at least do that and safeguard people a bit more, because our vulnerabilities are quite vast, because we can be so misunderstood, particularly when people say, oh, you don't look autistic. And maybe actually what I'll do, now that we're coming up to an hour that I've been rambling at you all, maybe what I'll do is just keep this little video, and the next time someone says it, I go, and your number, write the number down, go, oh, right, okay, yeah, and then just send them this link on WhatsApp or something, and then just go, well, I haven't really got time to explain the background because I'm trying to buy a pint of milk and this isn't in the script, and I'll maybe give them that back. But I hope for anyone else out there, particularly if you're an autistic adult listening to this, if someone's ever said to you, you don't look autistic, I hope that you don't have to. I mean, I do, because it's frankly part of my job, and as a campaigner and as an advocate. But I hope you don't feel that you have to disclose some of the most darkest, upsetting and triggering times in your life to prove it to them, because you don't have to prove it. The only person you ever, I guess, in a way, have to prove your autistic ways to, that's between you and your clinician. And once that's happened, please don't ever have to feel that you have to disclose something about you in order for people to believe you, because you don't have to please them. You don't have to put that bit of wallpaper on. Happy Autism Awareness Week. Bye.